The Ford tractor behind me only runs when the choke is pulled all the way out. I've done some troubleshooting and determined that the problem lies within the carburetor. So come on into the shop, follow along while I rebuild the Holley carburetor on this Ford 2000. These Holley carburetors are found on Ford 2000, 3000, 4000, and 5000 series tractors, including like a 2600, a 3400, etc. Now, some of them have been replaced to an aftermarket Zenith carburetor, so if yours looks different, you probably have a Zenith. But if you still have an original Holley carburetor, yours will look like mine, and you'll be able to follow along. So first, I took the carburetor off the tractor. The very first thing I did was I removed the ground battery cable off of the tractor. This carburetor is right next to the starter solenoid, and I didn't want to have any accidental arcing. Then there's 2 bolts at the top. You remove your choke and throttle linkages and your fuel line, wiggle it off the tractor, and it will come. It's a little tight, but work with it and it'll pull right off. Then you're ready to disassemble the carburetor. On the bottom of the bowl, there are several screws which you can take off. You can remove this screw, and then this bar will slide to the side, which allows the bottom of the carburetor to come off. Up here at the throttle, my throttle shaft here is a little bit loose. I'm going to take it off and replace it. So you'll just remove these 2 screws on the butterfly, and then your shaft will pull out. You can remove your fuel inlet here for the fuel line, and then inside the carburetor we'll take the float out and do some disassembly inside there as well. I am finished with the disassembly that I wanted to do there. Notice that I was able to get the plunger out. Every once in a while these will be stuck in the bore, but usually you can pull them right out like I did on mine. This tube right here is extremely fragile, so while you are pulling your carburetor apart and pulling that piece off of here, be sure that you pull it straight off so that you don't damage this tube right here. I have my carburetor thoroughly cleaned, and you're going to want to do the same. I used a can of carb cleaner with the nozzle on it to go through the whole entire carburetor, through all the passageways, followed by a blow-off nozzle. Make sure that you're wearing safety glasses and gloves, and really clean your carburetor. Having it clean is going to be your ticket to success on this carburetor. Now, some people will like to do a carburetor soak, and if that's something that you like to do, go ahead and do it. I'm normally successful with cleaning it just with a can of carb cleaner. That's what I recommend to people, but if you want to soak it, go for it and do it. Now I'm ready to insert these plungers for the fuel acceleration. When you get these plungers, they do come oversized for the bore, and that is on purpose so that you can make the proper adjustment and get these to fit in your bore exactly. Now this top plunger, when I took it out of the bag, it went right in exactly how I want it to be. Let me put a pair of pliers on here and I'll show you how that moves up and down really nicely. I like how this one fits. However, my bottom one is too big. I could probably really force it into the bore, but that is not at all what I want to do. It needs to slide in easily. So I'm going to show you how to make an adjustment in case yours is the same. Normally you would do this on a lathe, however I realize that most people don't have a lathe in their shop, and I want to make this something that you can do on your own. So I'm sure you have a cordless drill like this one. You could even use an electric drill. And go ahead and chuck your plunger into the drill and tighten it up. And then you can use a piece of sandpaper. I'm using 240, you could use 220, 300, anything fine like that. And just hold your thumb on it and slide this around here to adjust the size of your plunger. Use this a little bit at a time. You don't want to overdo it. It's brass, so it's going to go quickly, and then you can keep testing it till it fits into your plunger nicely. I like how this is right now. I like that a lot. So next I'm going to show you how to do your assembly right here in front. So you got these 5 pieces that are all going to line up. First, you need your rod like this. You're going to slide your rod in there and put it through the hole like that. Next you have your plastic piece. It's going to slide down that rod. I think I have a little burr on the end of my rod, so it's kind of giving me a catch, but there it goes. Like that. And then your spring, this is a loose spring, so you can just hold it back. And then you'll put your top plunger on, just like that. Release the spring, and then I'll put a little bit of lube, and it'll be ready to go into the carburetor. When you're ready to purchase parts for your tractor, you need to read the ID number so that you get the parts that match your carburetor. The ID number is right on the outside, so you don't have to take the carburetor off in order to purchase parts. You can use some carb cleaner to spray this, and if you need to use a wire brush, you can. Don't use sandpaper, you'll remove the ID number altogether. The top is a Ford part number. The bottom that starts out LIST or with the letter R is the number that you're looking for. Once you have that number, then you're ready to go shopping. When you are looking for your number, don't automatically think, I have a Ford 2000, so it has this specific Holley carburetor, because carburetors are easily replaced throughout the years, and it's very likely that your carburetor has been replaced throughout the life of the tractor. So definitely read the ID number before you choose what kit you want. We have a couple different kit choices here. They vary in price and the parts included. Here's the first kit. This is basically just gaskets. We have a new needle for your seat and a new idle needle that goes on the top of the carburetor. That's really it for this kit. The next upgrade does give you a new throttle shaft, which you can see here, and all the parts that were in the kit beforehand. Here is our most complete kit. It has the throttle shaft, it has the bottom of the carburetor with a new gasket, but the most notable part is these new plungers that you can put into your carburetor. So if you want to do a really thorough job rebuilding your carburetor, go ahead and purchase this complete kit and install all those parts in your carburetor. Here we have a float. Floats are not included in the carburetor kits because sometimes people don't replace them, but if yours needs to be replaced, be sure to add the float as an additional item. These 3 pieces are available in the kits in front of me, but sometimes people want to purchase these ones individually. Maybe they want an extra gasket, or they need to replace only their throttle shaft because it's worn from use. So if you need any of these parts individually, we do offer them apart from a kit. Here we have the air breather to carburetor hoses. There's 2 different lengths here because different models took different lengths. The model numbers are in the description so that you can get the correct length for your tractor. Here we have a fuel pump. If yours is leaking fuel to the outside, if it's leaking fuel into the crankcase, or it's just not pumping at all, you would want to replace yours. This is a little more detailed of a replacement. You have to take the radiator off, but it is doable, and it's kind of an essential part. So if yours isn't working and you want to replace it at the same time you're doing your carburetor rebuild, you can pick up this part. It does come with the gasket when you purchase the new pump, or you can purchase the gasket individually if you prefer. The last part here is a fuel shutoff nozzle here. These break often, the screens get gummed up, so if yours needs to be replaced, go ahead and do it. This just ensures a really good fuel flow through your carburetor and throughout the tractor. It's a pretty essential piece, and it's an easy replacement, so if you want to replace yours, now is the time to do so. You can purchase all these parts on my website. It is farmtractorrepair.com. We ship these out to you, and your purchase on that site helps to fund future tractor tutorials. When you disassemble your carburetor, you want to make sure that this tube is intact like mine is. If you discover that your tube is broken off, I don't know a way to repair that. So if that's the case that you're in, you probably need to purchase a core. As we have core availability, we will add that to our website, but it's not something we can get a consistent supply of, but we do try to keep track of some cores for you in case your tube is broken. Another thing that you could notice on your carburetor that would mean you need to purchase a new core is if anything's broken on your choke. Go ahead and inspect it, make sure the door opens and closes like mine does, and that these springs inside of there are intact. If your choke is broken, you could try to repair it if it's just something small, but if not, you might be better off with a core carburetor instead. At this point, I'll insert my new gasket. This just slides down here. Some of these Holley carburetors will have a 2-part gasket, so if yours does, don't be alarmed. Next, I'm going to put the plunger through here, like so. Then I'm ready to put my cap on. Before I put it on, I want to mention, here's your main jet. You can take this out with a screwdriver down here as well. Clean that passageway so thoroughly, and then put your screws back in. Do be careful when you put this back in that you don't damage it, because that new piece does not come in your kit. With that clean, you're ready to drop it down on top of the tube. Do this very gently so that you don't damage the tube at all. I'm going to put this over top of the plunger, like that. And that's going to be good. I'm going to reuse my 3 screws and make sure that they get all the way through. They do have washers underneath them. I'll get those started, and then I'm going to show you how to set the float next. Let me get one of these started so it will hold into place, and then I can tighten the rest up in a minute. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about the float. You need to replace your float if it is corroded or dented. Both of those things happen on a float. Here's my old one, here's my new one. So we're ready to drop it in. First, I'm going to put my needle in there, and then the float goes on top. Just going to hold this in place and then slide my shaft through. There we go. And through one side. Just got to get it on the end here. Maybe if I use a pair of small pliers, I can push that all the way through. Well, I'm kind of stuck there. Let me wiggle it a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So you can see my shaft's all the way through and my float is here. I'm going to look at my float, and I want to see that this is just about parallel. If it's not parallel, you can bend it a little bit, but just make sure that it's parallel. And then also you can flip it over and make sure that that needle is going up and down as mine is. If it gets stuck, that's okay. Just tap it lightly with the screwdriver there and make sure that that needle's coming down again and that that operates as it should. The next step is to assemble the bottom of the bowl of the carburetor. So I have the bowl here, and this just drops over like so. When you do so, make sure that those pontoons aren't hitting the side, because that could cause problem if they are rubbing. And then you just reuse those same 5 screws around the perimeter of the bottom of the bowl. The next thing you want to do is put your new cork seal here. If you bought the complete kit, you'll have these parts to put onto your carburetor. And then the bottom drops down. Just hold that in place while you set this bar across there. Notice that it hooks into that loop. And then you set that down. I think I got it upside down. Nope. Back the other way. There we go. And then the screw will tighten down just like that. I removed my old shaft packing. I just used a screwdriver to pry it out. It doesn't matter if you damage it, because you're going to put new packing in. This piece goes in first, and it just slides right in there, and then you put the next over top of it like that. I'm going to use a socket that's the right size. Mine's a 7/16 socket, and I'm just going to tap that into place until it's secure. Take a look at mine. Yours should look about the same once you have yours inserted. Once that's done, I'm ready to put my throttle shaft in. Just going to slide it through like that. You want yours to fit about how mine does. It'll go back and forth easily, it slides in easily, and there's no play in it. If there's play in your throttle shaft, then you need to replace it. Next, I'm going to put the butterfly in. The butterfly is directional. There's numbers on my butterfly, and the numbers always go up towards the top. I'm going to slide this down. Let me turn it around so you can see it there. Got my holes lined up just gonna put that up like that. I have brand new screws and they have a little tiny washer that goes behind them. I'm gonna set these in here, get the screw started, and then we'll set the screw on the side. The holes on the plate for your butterfly are slightly larger than they need to be, which allows for some adjustment to the plate. Make sure that when you tighten up your screws, it is sealed around here. Tighten them when they're in this position to ensure that when you open and close your throttle shaft, it seals like mine does. Once you have that into place, then you can use your idle adjustment screw and spring and put that into the side here. I'm gonna tighten this up. I have this down all of the way, and I'm gonna tighten this up. I'm gonna stop as soon as I see that move. So I'm gonna get close. It does have to screw in quite a ways. And I'm watching my plate from my butterfly. And as soon as that moves, right there, I saw it move a little bit. It's no longer sealed tightly. That's where I'm gonna stop, and this is the adjustment that I'm gonna start with. My new idle mixture needle is ready to go in. I have a spring to go around. I'm gonna set this in here. I like to tighten it all the way up until it's bottomed out, and then I come back a turn and a half. So you can do that same setting. It's just a really good place to start. You can make adjustment once it's on the tractor, but start at that turn and a half out, and it'll be good to go. I mean, go all the way down, and then I come back out. That's one turn, and that's a half a turn. Next, I'm gonna have a gasket on top. I have it all cleaned up from my old gasket, and then my fuel inlet goes here. I did put a little bit of sealer on the end of that. I also cleaned up the screen that's on the end so that that doesn't get clogged up there. Be careful when you're tightening this up. Your case is aluminum and you don't want to do any damage, so just tighten it but not overly tighten it, and then you're ready to put it on the tractor and make those final adjustments. Before I start my tractor up, I want to replace one more part, and that is this fuel shutoff nozzle. You can do the same. It's pretty simple, and yours might be broken like mine. You can see the wings broken off, and it makes it really hard to turn the fuel on and off on the tractor. So if you want to replace yours, first you need to remove your throttle linkage back here and then push it back out of the way. It can stay on the tractor. It just needs to be pushed back so you have enough clearance. And then your fuel line right here, you can just pull off and move out of the way. Once that is done, you can just loosen up your nozzle there, move it up here a little bit. Once I have it loose, I think I can move it with my fingers, and then I can just hold that fuel line out of the way so that I don't bend it or damage it. And then that whole valve will come off with the filter intact. I'm glad that my filter came with my shutoff valve. That doesn't always happen, so if your filter doesn't come with, go ahead and look at the top of your tank and fish it out from the top of your tank. Don't just leave it in there. So remove your whole entire fuel shutoff like that. And then you have a new one to put on. Notice that the filter is there intact. I'm going to use some thread sealant up here. This is gas and oil resistant. I'm just going to slide that all the way around here. And then I'm ready to put it back up into the tank. And I'll reattach my throttle linkage and my fuel line, and then we're set to go. My carburetor is onto my tractor. It does take a little bit of time and patience. You've got to get the choke and the throttle cables hooked up, tighten up this tube here for the air hose. I chose to put a brand new one on because it's more pliable. My old one was really stiff, and this just slides right over the carburetor and then tightens up with those clamps. So with everything situated here, I am ready to start the tractor up. Now, the very first time that you start a tractor, when you put a new carburetor on, you might have to crank it for a little while, maybe 20 to 30 seconds, just to get all the fuel through the system since you drained it while you were working on the carburetor. So keep cranking and it will start up. That's completely normal when you rebuild a carburetor. I have my tractor in neutral, so now I'm going to start it. This is the second time I've started it, so it'll start right up. When the tractor is running, there are two different adjustments that you can make. The first one is this screw. This screw will change the RPMs that the engine runs at when it's on idle. You can see that I'm going to pick it up, or I can slow it down. I'm going to leave it right there about the middle. That's where I like my RPMs to run when it's on idle. This second adjustment you will also make while the tractor is running, but I'm going to turn mine off so you can hear a little better. This is your idle mixture screw. You would turn this in or out a quarter of a turn at a time if your tractor has any sort of flutter in it while it's on an idle. It just helps that tractor to run smooth while it's on idle. There is no high-speed adjustment for this carburetor. It's already preset. So these two adjustments on your idle are the only adjustments that you need to make on your carburetor. I hope that this tutorial gives you confidence to rebuild your own Holley carburetor on your Ford tractor. When you are ready to purchase parts to make this repair, you can purchase them on my website. It's farmtractorrepair.com. You can also subscribe to our channel because we release new tutorials all the time.